How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to a long hiatus episode of the Hip Drop Podcast. Lucas and I are back after a pretty long break. We both had some things going on. Lucas had a pretty exciting trip to Las Vegas and is coming off a pretty nasty cold. So, Lucas, glad that you're feeling better. I had other obligations on my own. So, I think this was a good point. It's July 13th. Training camp starts in a couple of weeks. I think this was a good time to start kind of like the next season, so to speak, of our podcast. Like I said, the 2026 season is right around the corner. We're less than a month away from the Panthers and the Cardinals going at it in the Hall of Fame game, which I will watch every single second of, Lucas. Might bet on it too. Might take Panthers money line.
Oh,
Regardless, Lucas, how you doing? It's been a while. We have a lot to talk about today. We have all the positional rankings. We'll talk about the quarterback rankings, what the league thinks right now. We'll do another predictive type thing. But it's been a while. How you doing? How you feeling?
I've been sick off and on for the past month, but I'm most sick because I was ever so close to living out my dream, and I was lifting the Stanley Cup. But my
Yeah.
friends screwed me over, so I was not able to join the Carolina Hurricanes party because I was in Vegas during that weekend. But I guess as sick of as I've been, I guess you're more sick than I am if you're going to bet on the Hall of Fame game. So
Yeah. I
that
mean,
just
I've never
that just
done it
shows how
before.
the state of your mind right now.
Yeah. I mean, who's going to be the starters in the game? It'll be Kenny Pickett and Carson Beck. It's going to be embarrassingly bad. Anyways, so that's coming up. But today, the big buzz around the NFL was the official top 10 quarterback list as ranked by people around the NFL, coaches, executives, coordinators, front office members, so be it. That came out today. They've been doing positional rankings over the past several weeks. There have been some rankings at other positions that I don't necessarily agree with, could be controversial to some regard, but nothing gets people talking more than quarterback position. That is the position that leads to the most discourse around the NFL. People care about it the most. Fans of teams care about it the most. See where their guy's ranked. If he's too low, if he's not on the list at all. So before we analyze the list, here's the list in order. So Josh Allen, for the first time in his career, was ranked as the best quarterback in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes is second for the first time in 4 years. Patrick Mahomes was not at the top of the list. Matthew Stafford, the reigning MVP, was third on the list. Joe Burrow was fourth. Lamar Jackson was fifth. Dak Prescott was sixth. Justin Herbert, seventh. Drake May was eighth. Jared Goff was ninth. And then Caleb Williams makes his debut. He was 10th. As for the honorable mentions, the top honorable mentions were Sam Darnold, Jordan Love, and Jaden Daniels. Other honorable mentions include Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, and others receiving votes were Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, and Daniel Jones somehow got a vote. I wonder if that's someone from the Colts. Notable quarterbacks who did not get any votes: Aaron Rodgers did not get any votes. Kyler Murray did not get any votes. Bryce Young did not get any votes. So two division winning quarterbacks from last year. Kyler's another guy that's consistently been in the honorable mention range. So, Lucas, there's the list. We'll start from the top. We won't go all the way down to like the other vote getters, but we will kind of like say like who we think's too high, who we think is just right, who we think is on the list that shouldn't be, who we think is off the list that should be. So we will start at the very top with the White Bison himself, Josh Allen, ranked as the best quarterback in the NFL for the first time since this has started. He has been in the top five every year since his breakout in 2020. Look, I'm not surprised that Allen was first. I think it's been kind of trending for a while that he is kind of taken Mahomes' crown as the best quarterback in the league. He did win MVP in 2024. Last year, like he was a little more inconsistent than usual, but he still had a great year on its face. Um, Look, Allen to me is the one guy besides Mahomes I think is a case as the best quarterback in football. He besides James Cook, does not have great skill position players. Their offensive line last year took a bit of a step back, but their offense was still top five in pretty much every meaningful metric. Allen still was a touchdown machine last year. He actually was the first time since 2019 he did not record 40 total touchdowns in a season. But unfortunately, I think the black mark for Allen was that Denver game where look he made some plays in that game. He also infamously had 4 turnovers. The worst play was that play at the end of the half, which basically gave Denver 3 free points. But look, he's a great player regardless. Like I said, I don't have huge qualms with him being number one. Lucas, what say you? What do you think about Josh Allen being considered the best, the standard of the quarterback position in the NFL at this point?
I think they got the top two right. The order you can
Mhm.
debate about, and as much as many Chiefs fans want to and have been and will complain about the order of this list, and there are bigger issues in the top two. There has to be some additional context. I'm not sure if you brought it up. I got a little distracted with the text message, but Mahomes actually got more first place votes than Josh Allen did. It was like a
Yes,
situation
he
where
did.
like Allen was consistently rated higher because obviously how they did it was they just took the average ballot ranking of every player from every person's ballot, and Allen received the lowest or highest, lowest or whatever you want to do it score. So he had 2.1. That was his average finish. Mahomes is at 2.19. And I think a lot of the reason is Mahomes had a lot higher variance. I mean, Allen was number one for a lot of people, of course. And then no one ranked him outside of the top four. So he was not even,
Right.
didn't even get a fifth place vote, only in the top four. Mahomes got a ninth place vote, which means it's not it's not a stretch to say maybe he got another vote where he was placed in the 6 to 8 range as well.
Yeah.
Like, or maybe there were multiple ninth place votes. So it's possible, and I did the math, like it's realistic that if the ninth place voter just put Mahomes like second, which is reasonable, Mahomes may have been the highest rated player on this list.
Hmm.
But in terms of other ones I noticed, like I don't really know what the standard was. Do we know if they were supposed to rank based off next season going into this season, or
Right.
it was there any standard given? Because Stafford at 3 is kind of curious. I understand he won the MVP, so like I don't think like you're out to lunch if you have him as number 3, but at the same time, do we trust him to be the same guy going forward? Because if the
Right.
standard is who do you want this season, you only know the quarterback, you don't know the supporting cast, the system. I'd rather have the two guys who ranked right after him, Burrow and Jackson, above Stafford. If everyone's
Hmm.
healthy, maybe you could argue Stafford at 3, but I got a question there. Burrow, I think I'm not surprised he was at 4. I think that's probably the average rating if you were to include fan votes. So I think
Yeah.
that's fine. Someone had him as number 1. I don't think that's totally crazy. I just highly disagree with it for a variety of reasons. He was outside. He was at number 6. That was his lowest vote, so he had less variance than Mahomes.
Yeah.
And then Lamar had like the highest variance of any quarterback. We think Mahomes
He was
had
off the
big
list. So
range.
that's a fireable
Exactly.
offense. Putting Lamar Jackson
Yeah.
out. I know he didn't have a great year last year. I get that. He was hurt. Putting Lamar Jackson outside the top 10 is that person's lucky
Exactly.
they're anonymous. Yeah.
Exactly. Like 2023, he won the MVP. 2024, he was objectively better than he was in 2023. He had
Hmm.
in that year, in 2024, he had no down games. Like his worst game of the year was probably week 1 against Kansas City or at the Steelers game. And both of those games, he was like solid in. Like his worst games that year were like a lot of quarterbacks like average or mean game. And
Hmm.
then number 6, Dak Prescott. I think that's fine. Maybe he's maybe like 7 or 8, but like I'm not going to cry about a quarterback being 6 when I think he's 8. I think there's bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert at 7, probably about where I would have him. But like I understand like he's one of the more polarizing quarterbacks in the NFL. Someone might
Right.
have him like top 5. Others might have him 15. It just depends on how you value ability to play the position versus how they actually play the position in key moments.
Right.
And I think
In
Justin
that
Herbert, when
case,
you
Herbert
factor
would
in
be
the
lower. Yeah.
if you factor in the talent, he's top 5. If you factor in anytime the Chargers have needed him to be the best player on the field in a game that mattered, he's never come through. And I think this is probably his last year where like his fans are going to be able to cope because like
Right.
at some point, if you want to be viewed as an MVP, you have to make a play. Drake made at 8. I think that's about fair. Maybe like like a lot of people will have him higher. Like he received a 5th place vote. Some people are going to be like his playoff run was subpar and his schedule in the regular season was not that
That's
great.
fair.
I
Yeah.
would counter by saying he has the talent, and I think he did play well despite the schedule. Jared Goff at 9, I think, is like way too high. Like
Mm.
I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but the fact that someone put him in the top 5 is like almost as egregious as putting Mahomes at 9 and not ranking Jackson inside the top 10. He's a fine player. Like if you have like the ninth best quarterback in the NFL, you would think like they're capable of winning a game on their own at least once a season. I just
Yeah.
don't think Jared Goff's that guy, so I just highly disagree with that. Caleb Williams at 10, I think that's fair. He's another high variance guy where like some people are going to bet on the talent, and then others are going to be like, okay, he had some moments last year, but like the down to down consistency was not not impressive. Like, but
No.
if you're just looking for like who has the highs, Caleb Williams' highs were about as high as anyone last year that wasn't Josh Allen. And you could argue his highs were greater than Josh Allen because he had multiple key moments down the stretch. Just to
Exactly.
continue, just to dive deep on quickly on the honorable mentions, Sam Darnold just outside. I think that's about fair. I don't think he's some sort of elite quarterback, but I think he's proven he's more than just a middling starter. He's somewhere in that
Yeah.
messy middle. Jaden Daniels has the potential to be in the top 8. Can he stay healthy? Jordan Love, I think maybe should have been 10. He probably
Yeah.
should have gotten in over Goff, but some people he can't. He's hasn't been consistently on the field, and he's been a little inconsistent to some people. But I think he's been more consistent than people think. Brock Purdy, I think is about the same. Baker Mayfield doesn't belong on the list. I'm just going down on the list. Honorable mention.
Yeah.
That's where I'm pulling the names from. Trevor Lawrence, almost like Justin Herbert in a way, where like he has the talent to be a top 5 guy, but just not quite consistently shown up in big moments. But he played like an MVP down the stretch of the regular season last year, so he's shown he can put together elite games. Jalen Hurts, it's he's almost like the opposite of Justin Herbert, where like
Right.
you're not overly impressed, but like anytime the Eagles have needed him to play well, like in a conference championship or a Super Bowl, he's come to play. So it's
Right.
like, okay, I don't trust him to like win a bunch of games in the regular season on his own. But like if you need someone to get you that W in the playoffs, that's fine. And then CJ Stroud, I think is I think this list would have ranked him as like the 18th best quarterback. That's fair. Bo
They
Nix,
put him
Daniel Jones.
19th. They had
Yeah,
Nix,
not,
Stroud, and then Jones, and then
yeah.
they had just
I
20 guys.
Daniel Jones, I think is I I see where they're coming from, but like I just don't trust we're going to see that same guy post Achilles, which is worse than an
Right.
ACL. Bo Nix maybe should have been an honorable mention because he has made the playoffs both years. He
Hmm.
outplayed Josh Allen in that playoff game, including on a busted ankle for the last play of the game, apparently. So, okay, I'm done kind of yapping.
Yeah. No, it's good.
I don't think this is a terrible list. I think the one that really grinded my asshole was the edge rusher rankings, which Max Crosby was 4, and then some
Yeah.
goofball executive put him at 2, which has to. If that person works for the Raiders, fair enough. If another executive of another team put Max Crosby at 2, that just shows that like I'm not dumber than every NFL executive that's out there. I'm
True.
smarter than at least one because like I like Crosby as a person, but he's not the second best edge rusher in football. He's not the 4th best. I've gotten in arguments with people with common friends of ours. Were like, I don't think he's
Yeah.
even a top 10 edge rusher right now.
Oh, I
Because
think
like
he's top 10, but I think he's like 7. I think I don't think he's good as he used to
you can
be.
make
That,
you can maybe
yeah.
argue he's 9 or 10. He could bounce back, but we're not here to talk about the edge rusher ranking. So
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you have any strong disagreements with
No,
me, but that's kind of my two
I,
cents. I kind of just
I don't have any crazy disagreements with the list. Like, I don't think it's that bad of a list, to be honest. Like, I do think the top 2 guys, like, I don't have a huge, I know, like, we're biased towards Mahomes for certain reasons. I don't have a huge issue with Allen being ahead of him because Allen did outperform Mahomes last year, even when Mahomes was healthy. He vastly outperformed him in 2024. But Mahomes should be no lower than 2. And then I think the next 3 guys, it's in any order is correct. Stafford, Burrow, and Jackson. I agree with you. I would put, despite winning the MVP last year, I would put Burrow and Jackson ahead of Stafford. I do think Stafford is a guy that needs better infrastructure around him than those two. I think I've seen Burrow and Jackson, with bad offensive lines, with bad running games, with bad defenses, still go out there and produce. Stafford, to me, even in his prime, even when he was younger, is a guy that like he need great receivers, he needs great protection. They need to have a certain running game. And look, he's great. I think he's certainly deserving of that spot. But I slightly prefer those other two. 6 through 10, I think I would actually I would move Drake May up to 6. I would move Prescott down to 7 and Herbert down to 8. So I think it's the right 3 guys, but I would switch the order a little bit. 9 and 10 is when it gets a little murky. I would have Jordan Love on the list. I got to be honest, like I would take Caleb Williams out. I just don't think, I think he kind of lives off of highlights and clutch moments at this point. And look, he obviously has great potential. The talent is overwhelming. The consistency's not there yet. He completed just 58% of his passes last year. And as much as Bears fans like to say, like, oh, completion percentage doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but I do think if you're a really good quarterback, you should at least be around at minimum like 63, 64% in today's NFL. 58% is not good enough. And Williams, like he was just like I said, on a down to down basis, just wasn't at the level of some of these other guys. So I would have Love at 9. 10, like I'm a little higher on Goff than you are. I don't know if I would put him there. I might stick Jaden Daniels there because I think when he's healthy, I saw him his rookie year take a not very talented roster within a game of the Super Bowl. I think him and Goff are kind of like 10A, 10B. Because Goff, when you look at his numbers over the last 4 years, he has been the most prolific statistical passer in the NFL. He's thrown for 4,000 yards, excuse me. Each of the last 4 years, he's thrown 30 touchdowns each of the last 2 years, 3 of the last 4 years, actually. I feel like I know he's not an elevator, but like I do think he's a guy that at most of the years of his career, he has led some outstanding offenses. I mean, the Lions' offense has been among the best in football throughout most of Jared Goff's tenure there, and they did that without Ben Johnson last year. Even though the team wasn't as good, their offense was still highly productive, and I think that's a testament to Jared Goff. So I think he's like borderline top 10. I agree with Darnold being an honorable mention. I agree with Purdy being an honorable mention. I'd put Caleb in the honorable mention area. Same with Trevor Lawrence. I think those two guys are very similar, where they're both highly touted first overall picks. We've seen flashes of greatness from both of them. We just haven't seen it consistently. And then, Jalen Hurts, like Jalen Hurts was on the list last year. I understand why he's not on it this year, coming off the year that he just had. Baker Mayfield, like I said, definitely towards like probably closer to 20 than he is to 15. And then look, I don't think Daniel Jones should have gotten a vote. I don't hate CJ Stroud getting a vote. I know he's, not the most popular right now, but like him getting a vote, I don't think is egregious. Same with Bo Nix. Like I don't mind him getting like one vote if it's someone within the Broncos organization. And of the guys that didn't get any votes, like I don't really have any problems with any of them. Like I didn't expect Rodgers or Bryce Young or Kyler Murray or any of like the younger guys like Tyler Shuck or Jackson Dart or Cam Ward to get any votes. So like I actually think it's a pretty solid list. I would just switch some guys around in order, but I honestly think this is one of the better lists they've put out at the quarterback position. I think some of the worst lists that they did was at other positions, like you said. So like at the defensive tackle position, I think Leonard Williams is a fantastic player. I was flabbergasted to see Leonard Williams as the best defensive tackle in football when you can maybe argue he's not even the best interior defensive lineman on his own team with Byron Murphy the second there. So look, I get I get some of the rankings. I disagree with some of them, but nothing egregious to me. But I think perhaps my biggest disagreement is Caleb Williams being over Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love is a better player at this point. He's more consistent. He's a better from the pocket, and he's just done it longer.
Yeah, I largely agree. I mean, I agree in the sense that this list wasn't bad. Like it wasn't
No,
like
it
that
was not
bad.
that
Like
bad.
I'm not gonna sit here and say like my strongest objection was probably would have been Stafford at 3 or Goff at 9. And like even then, like Jared Goff at 9, it's not worth getting upset over like Max Crosby at 4 was. But yeah, so I think the executives largely got it right. Like it just shows that like individual people can be stupid, but like when you put a lot of people together, odds are it's going to be right.
Yeah.
That's why you trust like consensus big boards for draft like over any individual person. It's like you just that's how life works. So I think it was largely correct. Some places where I highly disagreed, but in the end, I would say it's a solid list. Wasn't a great list, not perfect, but there are very few spots where I'd be like, okay, that's egregious.
No, I tend to agree. I get that. Like I said, I don't mean to be like generic and just bouncing off each other. The one thing is, whoever put Mahomes at 9 should not be working in the NFL. They should not be in a position of power in a professional football team. Like, who are the 8 guys you could put ahead of him? You could even like reasonably put ahead of him. Like, I'm sure Allen, Burrow, Jackson, maybe I don't know. Maybe it was the guy that put Jackson unranked. I have no idea. But that person should. That's the kind of stuff where these anonymous lists, people get really bold because they don't know. They won't know. People won't know that you had that take, you had that opinion. But saying Patrick Mahomes is the ninth best quarterback in football is just absolutely asinine, beyond words. All right, so that's the reaction to the top 10 quarterback list. Just to rehash in order: Patrick Mahomes, or excuse me, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Drake May, Jared Goff, Caleb Williams. Those are the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL according to people around the league. All right, so Lucas, we're gonna do an interesting segment, kind of like not really a prediction, but more so of like a confidence meter in certain teams. So we're each going to take three teams. You're going to do the AFC. I'm going to do the NFC. Three teams that missed the playoffs in 2025 that we think have a reasonable, or flat out think will make it in 2026. So we'll go one at a time. You'll do a team, I'll do a team, so on and so forth. So I feel like I know one of the teams that you're going to say that missed the playoffs last year that's going to be there in 2026. So Lucas, who is your first AFC uh new playoff team in 2026?
I'm going to take that team you're referring to. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I think there's a reality where they missed the playoffs this year, but I just think as long as Mahomes is like healthy by October, and when I say healthy, I mean like he can move without a significant brace. I think they're going to make the playoffs. Whether they're going to be favorites to win multiple playoff games is a completely different question. But I think they're going to get in, even if it's as like the 5, or 7 seed.
Yeah, look, I would be shocked if the Chiefs missed the playoffs again, barring injuries. Like I look, they were last year went as badly as it possibly could. Yet if Mahomes stayed healthy, they might have had a winning record still. Because look, they would have beat the Raiders in Week 18. Like you want to argue they split the Titans and Broncos games? Like sure, I'd listen to that. But regardless, like they were probably like an 8 or 9 win team last year if Mahomes stayed healthy, and literally everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Which in 2024, everything that could have it was the other way around. Everything that could have gone right for them that year went right, of course, until the Super Bowl. But yeah, like if you have a healthy Patrick Mahomes, you have Kenneth Walker now in the backfield. Your receivers are a big question mark, but like Rice is talented, even though he's a head case. Worthy has shown flashes of being a quality receiver. Like Kelsey's still, he's not obviously not great anymore, but he's still a good tight end, top 10-ish tight end in football. The line's very good, and we'll see how the defense plays because it's a young defense. It's a lot of new pieces. So we'll see how Steve Spagnuolo has that unit rolling. But yeah, like I am not betting on the Chiefs to miss the playoffs 2 years in a row. So I agree with that statement. All right, so my first NFC team is a team kind of similar to the Chiefs last year, where perennial contender, but just had a down year, and that's the Lions. The Lions last year went 9-8, finished in last place in the NFC North. But if you remember, Lucas, like the Lions, much of the year last year were a good team. They started 4-1. They were 5-2 at their bye, and then shit kind of really hit the fan after their bye. They had injuries. They really struggled defensively. Their offensive line was not quite as good as it had been in years past. They lost many close games. They lost a game to the Steelers. That was a close game. They lost a one-score game to the Rams. They lost a close game to the Packers on Thanksgiving, a relatively close game that was. Like the Lions last year, I think were a better team than their record indicated. Like they were I think they were the favorite in the NFC to go to the Super Bowl in mid-October, and then things just kind of fell off. But they were not a bad team. Like they had bad moments, they had bad performances, but by and large, I think they were probably like an 11-ish win team masqueraded as a 9-win team. Obviously, the low point was that losing to the immortal Max Brosmer on Christmas. He had 3 total yards. But when you look at the Lions, like Campbell's a good coach. Goff, like I like Goff more than you do. Like I think he's a quality, good quarterback. He has his flaws, but I think he's good. Gibbs is one of the best running backs in the league. Like they have the offensive pieces, they have the weapons. Their line is not quite as good, but it's still a decent-ish line. Like I said, it's not what close to what it once was, but I still think it's a line that you draft Blake Miller, you hope he pans out. Obviously, you have Penei Sewell, who's a stud. My big issue with them is on defense. Like, what are you getting out of that defense? Because that defense really, really struggled a year ago. Obviously, Brian Branch is injured. Kirby Joseph is injured. Like, Aiden Hutchinson's really the only game changer on that side of the ball. So that's one concern that I have. But I think if the Lions offensively stay healthy this year, I think they could and potentially will be back in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. That probably would have been my first pick in the NFC too. They're just too talented. Like I mean, in an individual year, bad luck can go against you, and like you end up missing the playoffs. Like you're not a terrible team, but
Yeah.
I don't think Detroit got significantly worse. I think the luck will be back on their side, and I think they'll get in the playoffs. It's a tough NFC field, but I'm not really sold of any team in the NFC North that's really separated themselves from the pack. So I think the odds of the Lions at least getting a wild card are pretty comfortable. So I agree with your pick there. So my second team in the AFC, it's kind of tough because of the 9 teams that missed the playoffs. At least half, if not more, are like clearly rebuilding in some capacity or at
Yeah.
some stage of a rebuild. So like really, there I have to pick 3 teams, but there are only really 4 options. I'm just going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. I
Mhm.
just don't think they're going to miss the playoffs again
By the
for what
way,
this would be.
the Bengals are the most currently, I just saw a post on social media, not to interrupt you, Lucas. The Bengals are the most bet on team to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC, I saw, according to DraftKings.
Yeah,
I don't agree
that's
with that, but like people like they have an easy schedule, so I can see that.
yeah. I think that's just. I don't think that means like they're the most likely, but I think given whatever odds they are, I think they'd rather bet the Bengals at like 15-1 to go to the Super Bowl than like Buffalo at like 5-1, which I
Right.
wouldn't totally disagree there. But like, I just don't think they're going to miss again. You would think Joe Burrow has to be healthy at some point. The defense, still not a big fan of Al Golden at DC, but brought in a lot of additions: Dexter Lawrence, Boye Mafe, Brian Cook. Like they got better at all 3 levels. I don't think the defense is going to be elite, but is it going to be better than dog shit? I think so. The offense, I think, is still going to be humming. So I just think this team is going to get in the playoffs in some capacity. They could win the division. That's why I think I'm comfortable. It's like the AFC North's pretty wide open. Cleveland's
Right.
not going to win the division. Pittsburgh, yeah, they won the division last year, but like no one really cares that Pittsburgh's the defending AFC North champ in any
No.
capacity. Like so, like
Steelers
okay,
fans don't care.
yeah, the path is there. So like,
Right.
yeah, my next pick is Cincinnati. I think they got a top 3 offense in the conference, and I think the defense is going to not be a bottom 5 defense in the conference, even if it's still like the 20th best defense in the NFL. That'll be good enough to get them at least in the playoff field.
Yeah, former guest of the show, Matt Verderam, made a point of this on his own personal podcast. If the Bengals defense can even be like league average, like if they can be like the 17th best defense in football, I think there's a path where they can be a playoff team, if not more. Because if Burrow's healthy, you know they're going to score with those receivers. Brown's a decent-ish running back. But yeah, like that. Look, I think they at least made an effort to improve their defense. They bring in Brian Cook. They obviously make that huge trade for Dexter Lawrence. They signed Boye Mafe. They draft Cassius Howell, who's the defensive player in the NFC and the SEC last year. So you can't say the Bengals aren't putting in an effort to make that defense better, but we got to see it pay off on the field. But like I said, you look at the quarterbacks. I'm not betting against the teams with Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow to underperform on a consistent basis. And look, the Bengals went 6-11 last year. They were 5-3 in games that Burrow played. Like you could argue they win that division last year if he doesn't get hurt. So, like I said, I can see the vision there, but that defense needs to at least be borderline competent. All right, my second team in the NFC is the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys last year went 7-9-1. They were actually like in the playoff picture going into December, but things kind of they lost, I believe, 3 games in a row, which took them out of it. But you look at the Cowboys, you look at the division that they're in, like that's not a very daunting division. Like the Commanders have a lot of questions. The Giants, they got to prove it. The Eagles are kind of in a weird situation where they move on from AJ Brown. Like, what's that going to look like? Who knows? I think the Cowboys, like, they bring in a new defensive coordinator in Christian Parker from Philadelphia. They're very similar to the Bengals, where like they have the offense, they have the quarterback. Dak is a more than good enough quarterback. Like I said, top 6 quarterback in the league on the list. They have 2 excellent receivers in CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. Like, I think they are going to score a lot of points if they're healthy. But last year, their defense was just so rancid. You got to wonder, like, if Christian Parker is an upgrade from Matt Eberflus, which should not be very hard, can they be a team where, okay, just hold them teams to like 24-ish points and we'll outscore them and win? I think that's kind of Dallas's path to success this year. Like they drafted Caleb Downs, who some argued was the best over or top two-ish player in the draft overall. They draft Malachi Lawrence. So they use both their first round picks on defense. They have Quinnen Williams, who they traded for midseason last year. So they're a team that like is similar to the Bengals. Like the effort is there. They are clearly trying to improve that side of the ball because they know their offensive side of the ball is good enough to be a playoff team. So I can see a scenario where in that division, like I don't think the Commanders are very good. The Giants, I don't know what to make of. The Eagles, I feel like have some questions where I could definitely see Dallas being an 11-win team and returning to the playoffs for the first time since 2023. But like similar to the Bengals, that defense just needs to be average.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We think Dak Prescott's a top 10 quarterback in some capacity. If you don't, then you must be 11th. The CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, probably the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. If not, it's top 2 to 3. Javonte Williams, legit starting running back. Jake Ferguson, good starting tight end. Offensive line, if everything clicks, could be a top 7 unit in the NFL. So their offense really, there's a scenario where they have like no flaws like at all and has a potential to be like high level elite because Dak Prescott's good at throwing the deep ball and they have 2 elite receivers, so that increases the ceiling. And their defense, their pass rush, their front 7, particularly, it's their pass rush, not their front 7. It's like weirdly deep, not like they don't have like a Micah Parsons. They could use a player like Micah Parsons, but like Quinnen Williams, good defensive tackle. Kenny Clark, still a contributor as a defensive tackle. Demarion Overshown, I think, is a good linebacker. He's an off-ball linebacker. And then Rashawn Gary, I think, is a solid starting edge rusher. James Houston, solid backup edge rusher. But then Donovan Ezeraku, I still like him as a second-year edge rusher. Malachi Lawrence had a lot of fans. Sam Williams, I think, is pretty good. And, like, Jay-Sean Barham, he had a lot of fans in the draft community this year. So, like, this is an area where their pass rush is, like, really, really good because they're, like, 7th best pass rushers. Probably could be better than any other team's, like, 5th best pass rusher. And so that has a potential to be a solid asset for them. And then they picked probably the highest floor player in the draft at Caleb Downs. And still a lot of holes. Like the cornerback room has a lot of questions, but like Caleb Downs is going to be good. He could be a good nickel corner. Jalen Thompson, I think, is a sneaky good son.
Oh, I've read. Yeah, they signed him. Yeah,
that. I think Jalen Thompson was the last compensatory draft pick, I think, or he was a compensatory draft pick. Yeah. I don't know if he was the last one, but he definitely was. And yeah, Deron Bland, I think, is still a solid corner. I think the big question is, can their linebackers outside of Overshown and their cornerbacks be league average, if not slightly below league average? And can their pass rushers, can some of their young pass rushers take a step behind Gary? Can Ezeraku become a really good edge rusher? Can Malachi Lawrence have a good rookie year? Could Jay-Sean Barham surprise people? I think they're a relatively high floor team as long as like their cornerbacks are not the worst in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're a Super Bowl team, but like if you tell me they're 11-6 and they're like the 5 seed, I'd be like, okay, I could see that. If you tell me the Eagles implode, the Commanders don't quite get back to their 2024 form, and the Giants just don't take the next step, Cowboys can go 12-5, win the division. So I like that pick. I respect it a lot. So next team, my last team, actually, not my next team. Between two teams, I'm going to go the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
Like it was between them or the Colts, but I think Lamar Jackson's going to bounce back this year. Derrick Henry, I think, will give us one last year of being like a top 7 running back before he slows down. I think the Ravens, I didn't love what they did at wide receiver, but you would think that at least one of Jacoby Lynn or Elijah Surratt will figure it out this year, or Devontae Walker finally takes the next step.
Yeah.
But they've never been a big wide receiver team anyways. But the offensive line, Oyane from Penn State, he could probably be a day one Pro Bowl guard. Their offensive line should be much improved over last year, but that's a big assumption. I think their defense, with Jesse Minter, I think should be really good. Like I think the coaching is going to be a big step. Can Trey Hendrickson still be a good pass rusher? That's kind of the big key. And their secondary has a lot of question marks, but it's also a pretty high ceiling unit. Malachi Starks is a touted draft pick. Kyle Hamilton, Nate Wiggins, I thought played really well last year. Chidobe Awuzie, kind of a solid corner, and then Marlon Humphrey might be washed, but like if he has a resurgent year, then that defense can be not 2023 special, but league average. And I think Lamar, if he bounces back, is good enough to get them into the playoffs. I don't think this is a Super Bowl team by any stretch unless they really hit a couple of home runs at wide receiver in the draft. But I think just to get back into the playoffs, I trust them over any other team. The only team you could probably argue against, is close with them to get into the playoffs is the Colts. And like
Yeah.
they have Daniel Jones at
There's no
quarterback,
other
and
team.
like
Yeah.
because like
There's
look at
no
the
other team you
AFC
can
that
even argue. I mean, the other teams in that
exactly.
division are. So sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like it's really like four teams you could argue.
Yeah.
Like the Dolphins, Browns, Raiders, no, Titans, no. It's like
Jets.
it's
No.
really
Like,
not. It's not that
yeah. There's
much. It's
nobody
like
else. And I would even
So like
argue like the Colts, the gap between the Ravens and the Colts. I mean, we'll see it week one. They play each other in Indianapolis week one. I think it's pretty wide. I think it's clearly like, I mean, you have, like I said, I think you have three of the four best quarterbacks in football who did not make the playoffs last year. So I think it's pretty safe bet there. Like the Ravens, they're a team that I think has a lot of questions, but if those questions are at least halfway answered, I could see that. I don't see a world where they're not in it again. Their schedule is not very hard, similar to Cincinnati. They don't have a very daunting schedule. Lamar, we'll see how he looks in this new offense with Declan Doyle. Minter's an intriguing head coach hire, kind of a similar mold to Mike McDonald in Seattle, where he was a defensive coordinator under Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Worked under a Harbaugh in the NFL, same tree, same background. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. I don't love their roster. I don't love their their 1 through 53 roster. I don't think they're very deep. I think they're old in a lot of areas, but like their best players are among the best of their positions with Lamar and Henry, assuming he doesn't fall off. Flowers, I think, is a quality wide receiver. Hamilton, I think, is the best safety in football. Hendrickson, we'll see how he bounces back after an injury riddled 2025. I think there's a path for them to be very good this year. I also think if guys age out, Henry falls off, and Lamar, isn't the same with his lower body injuries, then shit could really hit the fan. But they're a safe bet to get back in my opinion. Last team, my final NFC team is from Lucas's neck of the woods. That is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, 9-8 a year ago. They had a winning record despite the worst quarterback play in the NFL. Their starting quarterbacks last year were J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz, and like I said, Max Brosmer. They won 5 in a row to end the year. They ended the year really hot, and they bring in Kyler Murray. And look, Kyler Murray by no means is a great quarterback. I think he's a very run-of-the-mill average quarterback at this point in his career. Never really replicated his performance from 2021, but he is a clear upgrade over what they had a year ago. And if there's any place for Kyler to kind of regain some of his early career form that he showed in Arizona, this is the place to do it with Kevin O'Connell, with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and now Jawan Jennings. Like you have arguably the best 1 through 3 receiver trio in the NFL, with Jennings in there now. Like they're an interesting team. Of course, they still have Flores coaching the defense. Their defense, I think, is not quite as talented as it used to be. I think they're aging in certain areas, but I think they're well coached enough. Like Flores will plug some holes and fill some gaps to the point where they're at minimum and above average defense. I think it all comes down to Kyler. Like he's definitely better than McCarthy and Wentz and whoever, but can Kevin O'Connell do with him what he did with Sam Darnold in 2024? Can 2026 Kyler Murray be 2024 Sam Darnold? And if he is, I don't see a reason why Minnesota can't at least be a wild card team. Now that is the most interesting division in the NFL, because I think the NFC North is the one division of football where I would argue there's no bad teams. There's no bad teams even in the NFC West. You have the Cardinals dragging that down. I think the Vikings. Do I think they're a Super Bowl contender? No, but I think if Murray can like replicate what Darnold did in 2024, or what even he did himself in the first half of 2021, they're a team that I wouldn't want to play in the playoffs. If all goes well. So I trust their infrastructure. I like their weapons. It all comes down to Kyler kind of rejuvenating his career a little bit.
yeah, and I also think it comes down to can Christian Darrisaw be healthy this year?
Yeah.
He only played 10 games last year, and and he only played in he's quietly been very injury riddled the past couple of years. He played in 10 games last year total. and he only played in, I believe, 7 games in 2024. So, like, man, like he's missed a full season over the last 2 years. That cannot happen. He's one of the 7 best left tackles in the NFL. You could argue he's higher than 7th. He also has to stay healthy, but I have a lot of family here. As I know, I live in the States, so that's a given. The Kevin O'Connell approval rating is higher outside of Minnesota than it is in Minnesota. Like I was talking to a couple of my cousins, like they're like, yeah, he's a fine coach, but like they kind of view him as like how a lot of people view Andy Reid. Used to view Andy Reid early in Kansas City days. We're like, okay, he's a high floor coach, but like can't get the job done. Yeah, Darnold shit the bed against the Rams in the Cardinals stadium. I almost said it in the Cardinals name, but O'Connell was the coach and didn't do him any favors in that game. They also lost to the Giants in 2022 when he had the clear quarterback advantage. So Kevin O'Connell's under pressure this year, but at the same time, there's no chance their draft is going to be any worse than the average draft under Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Like, and they had a temporary GM this year, which is kind of odd, but I think is based where like they didn't hire their full-time GM until after the draft, which if anyone who says that's a weird move, I think is kind of exposing themselves as not knowing how the NFL works. So I think this draft is, it has to be a better draft. I'm purely just betting on like, okay, Kwesi was the worst drafter in the NFL. Anybody is better than him. But like, I look at this draft and like, it's a lot of risks. Like Caleb Banks, like you either loved Caleb Banks as a prospect or you hated him. Like,
right.
You either had him top 20 or outside the top 50. Not a lot of middle ground with him.
Right.
And like he could beat Chris Jones, like legitimately. Like I'm not saying
I liked
that
Banks.
like
I thought I went with the talent. I know, but like
the talent was there, but like the red flags, like a nagging foot injury of a guy who's over 300 pounds, like that's not good. Jake Golday, I thought was a good pick, but Dominique Orange, like I think this draft has to be better. But at the same time, let's go to the roster. Kyler, like they went 9-8 with me playing quarterback, so like you would think Kyler's going to be better, but like Kevin O'Connell likes to use the middle of the field, and Kyler Murray has historically struggled with using the middle of the field. So it might be better because they have Justin Jefferson on the outside, so it might not matter. But that gives me some pause. And the defense is kind of going to be more of what it always has been, where it's like, okay, it's not a very talented top to bottom unit, but like they got a few difference makers, and Brian Flores will coach anyone up. Like I think if I'm going to put one player under pressure this year that's not a quarterback for the Vikings, it's going to be Dallas Turner. They traded up for him in the same draft as JJ McCarthy. He still has a lot of fans in the NFL, but like it's been 2 years and he hasn't been super impressive. Like he had 8 sacks last year, but like I wouldn't say it was a fugazi sack here, but it was more like felt like he wasn't as good as the 8 sacks would indicate. So I think if he could turn into what people thought he could be, which is a borderline Pro Bowler, even if he's just short of that, if he's a high-end starting pass rusher, this Vikings defense could be good. And with Caleb Banks, if he hits, that's 2 high-end pass rushers. Andrew Van Ginkel's still there. Like, they got some dudes there. And then Brian Flores could coach up exotic coverages. That could be a sneaky good, like, top 10 defense. And so I think this team can be like an 11-6 team, get you the 5 seed or the 4 seed, depending on how the NFC North shakes out. So I see the vision, but the floor is also really low. Like, if Kyler just does not click, the offensive line doesn't stay healthy, and like Caleb Banks and Dallas Turner just are not it, this team could be like 7-10. And I know they finished 9-8 last year, but like they were 4-8 at one point, I think.
They were really bad, and then they were similar to the 2011 Eagles with Andy Reid, where like they were like the dream team, and then they sucked, and then they finished off strong to make their record look better than they were. That was the Vikings. Like the Vikings last year were not a 9-win caliber team. They just like beat up on some really, really bad teams at the end of the year. Of course, they had that great win against Detroit on Christmas with Brosmer at quarterback. Yeah. But I look at them and I think they have a good enough coaching staff and enough talent on their team to return to the postseason.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't disagree with you. Like I probably would have picked the Vikings too, but at the same time, like this team is a high variance team. Like I could see them easily going 6-11 or 12-5. Like if Tyler just goes back to Yeah, like I don't think they're a Super Bowl team, but like I could be talked into them being a 3 seed that like makes us like a scrappy NFC Championship game run, but nothing more than that.
Right. No, I think that's their ceiling. And like I kind of bypassed the NFC South because I could make a case for all four of those teams winning the division. And I could make a case for all four of those teams having a top five pick. Like obviously, like I thought about the Giants, but I think the Vikings are better. I don't think much of the Commanders this year, and obviously the Cardinals are atrocious. So Lucas, I mean that about wraps up our episode for today. It's good to be back. It's good to know that football is coming back. It's the best season in the world. Obviously, the World Cup's going on. We got France versus Spain tomorrow. We got England versus Argentina on Wednesday. The U.S. I mean, they had a respectable showing, but went out with a dud last week against Belgium, unfortunately. But Lucas, do you have any parting thoughts before we head out and return next week?
Nope, it's finally nice that football season's coming around. And if you're religious, pray that Rasheed Rice continues to stay out of trouble.
I know
It's been
no
almost a
Rasheed Rice,
month since he's made news, so it's like
no Rasheed Rice
maybe
news, but we'll knock on
maybe
wood.
the Chiefs locked him inside one Arrowhead Drive, other than for the Taylor Swift Travis Kelsey wedding, and
Hey,
that's why he stays out of trouble. Or they hired him a personal driver, which I think if
he
the
might
Chiefs
need
haven't
one.
done it, there should be like an investigation. But
Right.
yeah, glad to be back. Get back into the role of things. But yeah, glad to be back, and we'll continue to make this podcast the best we can make it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.